Good morning, everyone. Today I'm out here working on the drip in the garden with little Evie, and I thought it'd be a great day to show you how to set your drip up in your garden, because when I was first looking at this, which was last year, I just kind of got my hands in it, and it's been great. But when I was looking, I could find zero good information in one spot on exactly what I needed and exactly how to run it. So that's what I'm hoping to do for you here today. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take you over to my faucet, show you that setup and that piece you need. Everything that I have used in this garden today, as far as drip goes, is listed at rockfishfarm.com. If you go under shop and under garden, everything is listed there, and I kind of gave a description of what you need and why and what pieces go together. It seems kind of confusing when you're looking and researching it, but it's very easy once you get going. And let me tell you what, midsummer, your water turning on by itself is the most amazing thing ever. Let's go over to the faucet and I'm going to show you what I got over there. Okay, so we're starting over here at the faucet. So you have the water timer first. I highly recommend this because you coming out here and turning the water on every morning, it's not worth it. This thing, I think it's about 60 bucks or so. So worth it. You can time it. It's got 4 different zones. There's ones available that has less zones. I recommend going, if you've got a larger area, go for all 4. We actually save this one to water our horse troughs and things like that. So right now we have 3 zone hookups. We may end up using this one this year because we have finished the garden and we'll be doing all of these areas. So what you have here, you have your water timer connected to your water timer. This comes as a set. Again, you can find it on my website. So, I mean, it just comes all in one piece. So you've got your backflow preventer, you've got your pressure reducer, you've got your, there's something else in here, I can't remember, but if you go to the site, it all comes as one piece. It's got like a little screen in there. Oh, this is what it is. It's to neck it down, okay? Because this is the hose fitting here, you need something that's going to connect to your actual drip line. So we run the 1/2 inch. This one, I believe it came with the 1/2 inch connector, but there is an option for a 1/4 inch. So it just kind of depends on what you're running. Here in the garden and here like in landscape, you're probably going to want to go with the 1/2 inch. It's going to run a lot more water. I will do a different video of how I ran it to my upper deck and my hanging baskets up there at the house. It's a little bit different setup, but pretty much the same, except we run a 1/4 inch off of it and then up to everything because it's not running as much and as far. So this all comes in one piece and then your drip connects to it. So it's easy to just kind of get this one piece, then you know you've got everything that you need. Grab your timer. You will need a little kit here for each zone that you're planning on running. So you hook it up like that. You don't need one if it goes to the actual hose connector. All right, so let's go talk about some drip lines. Okay, so let's talk about the actual drip lines and our main line, which is blank distribution tubing, and what you need and the different sizes. Okay, so first off, we have the black tubing, which you saw hooked up to the faucet. So, and the timer. So this is blank distribution tubing, which means there are no holes throughout it. So this is your main line. Sorry about the rooster. You need your main line. For like a space like this, a large space like this, I would run your 1/2 inch. I think it even comes up to 3/4 inch. So it's kind of like the longer you have to go from the faucet to the places you need to go, you want more water to run. So you could, if you need to, go up to a 3/4 inch. For this garden space, I've got the separate zones set up, and even though this is quite a large space, I'm still able to get what I need done with the 1/2 inch tubing. So if you're sitting there doubting yourself, just go for the 1/2 inch tubing. I'm pretty sure you're going to be fine unless you have an insane amount of water or you have to go very, very far from the faucet to the actual location where you are going. Okay, so 1/2 inch is blank. That is your main line. I'm going to show you how I have that ran. You kind of take it. You think of your distribution tubing as like, how am I getting from my faucet to the area I need it to be ran? I don't want any water coming out of it, except for the places I choose. So this is the one you're going to grab. You've got to have this, okay? So then there is also distribution tubing that is 1/2 inch size that has holes. You can get emitters every, I think, 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches. So this one that I have is every 6 inches. To be honest with you, for what I'm doing, I choose the 6 inches. I think it just puts out a better amount of water. I'd say when in doubt, go for the 6 inch. And maybe you could go for the 12 inch if you don't have like a ton of stuff planted in your garden, which I will go over that and show you how to do that too. So if you are running like through a flower bed and you just kind of want to snake it through and just kind of give water throughout so that everything gets it, the 6 inch is probably going to be your best bet in your 1/2 inch tubing. There is also 1/4 inch tubing. So I've used that in some places down here. There is blank distribution tubing and there is ones with emitters through it. So what I mean by emitters through it, so it means that it has holes in it every 6 inches. So every 6 inches water comes out, okay? So this is the emitter tubing for the 1/4 inch. And it looks like it's every 6 inches probably or so. Okay, maybe it has it on here. I don't see it. Before I move on, let me tell you, I buy a lot of the Rainbird stuff. I have found all of this through Amazon. Again, if you go to that website, you'll find it all. But I get all of it through Amazon. Stick with one brand. Most everything kind of fits with everything, but every now and then you're going to find something that doesn't fit. When it comes down to the connectors, which I will show you in a minute, when it comes down to the connectors, I've had some that don't fit quite as well into some of this tubing. So I tend to stick with one brand if I can. If I can't, I get it. And typically I can make it work. The only thing I've had problems with are the end closures, which I'm looking, and it looks like the baby has taken it somewhere. So I'll have to get that in just a minute. I will show you all of the little fittings. But, well, maybe it's under here. Nope. Okay, I'll find you one in just a minute. That's the only one that I have problems with where it's really, really tight to get it back through. Okay, so same thing for 1/4 inch. We have the blank distribution tubing. I'll show you how I do that. I do not, in the garden, run that from any faucet or anything. Typically, I'm taking that blank distribution tubing from my main line into like a pot that I have down here. I think that's the only way I've used it down here in this garden. I think I've only done it in 2 areas so far. So I don't do a lot of that. But what I do use a lot of is the 1/4 inch distribution tubing with the 6 inch emitters. Okay, so it holds every 6 inches. This is great for snaking through smaller flower beds. If there's not a lot in there, I will take this and pull this off of my main line and then wrap it around, like I've got it wrapped around hydrangeas, I've got it wrapped around small trees, so that it puts it right at the base of the plant. If there's things that really need a lot more water, I will pull it. Like if it's not enough coming from my 1/2 inch tubing, just being snaked through the garden bed, then I will take it. If it's something that likes a lot of water, I will take it and wrap it around the base of the plant there. And then I will also be using this in all of my raised beds, which you can see back there. I will snake this through that entire garden bed. All right, so now before I go on to the fittings and things like that, there is an option for drip tape, which I will show you how I have that hooked up and how I used that last year. There's a difference between the drip tubing and the drip tape. So drip tubing is going to be better for your landscaping and it's going to be better for like your raised beds. I tried it last year, the drip tape last year, and it works good. There's nothing wrong with it, but drip tape, if you pull it up during the winter time, it'll last probably several years for you. I did not pull mine up during the winter. We did not have that harsh of a winter, so it looks like it's still in pretty good shape, but it's flimsier and it has holes. The ones that I got, same thing, every 6 inches, and I think you can get different things. It's less expensive, But I would say you still have to have your main line to get it to the places, and then instead of whatever you choose as far as something with emitters. Okay, so I have drip tape ran in some of my raised beds, which I was not a fan of. It just did not put it out how I needed it to put out. And then I had it up in with some of my flowers that I planted for like cut flowers. If you're going to use drip tape, it does a lot better for row gardening. If you're doing the traditional in-ground row gardenings, drip tape is going to be your best bet to go. And it is inexpensive and it'll go far for you in those rows. If you're doing square foot gardening, raised bed gardening, and landscaping, you are probably going to want to go with your drip tubing. Okay, so let's talk about some supplies here that we need. Okay, so for your 1/2-inch tubing, there are some connectors that you can get. So usually these first pieces come as a set, and so you'll get all of them so that you have your options, okay? I would probably go ahead and grab several packs of these, especially if you're going with a large area and a lot of different places, because they can go pretty quick. So there's pieces like the end cap connectors. These were the pieces I was talking about that, you know, if you don't stick with the same brand, they can be kind of tight. So what you do with these, I will show you in just a little bit, but you fold it, fold the end, slide, or you slide this on, fold it, and then stick it down this, and it clamps the water. So when you get to the end of a run, you're going to need to close it off with one of those. Okay, so then the other 3 options are these little pieces that let you tee off to certain zones or areas that you need. If you make a mistake and need to cut and connect them together to kind of splice off. Same, it's got an elbow. So if you need to make a turn, like you come to an end of a corner and you want to make a nice little turn, you can, or if you want to go up to like your raised beds, then this makes it great to kind of connect those and make a straight line. So it comes with elbow pieces. It comes with T pieces so that you can insert, if your main lines, you can insert into here. You can come off of this 3rd piece to go to another area, either with your main line or some distribution tubing. Okay, so T pieces, and then also this is the connector. So like if you have to, you ended somewhere and you say, okay, I want to extend this bed here, you insert this one, you take off that end cap, you insert this one in here, and then continue on, and it just continues on the water. So I'm going to be using a lot of these this year because I started it last year and I need to continue on. So those are great. Then there's also, so you're going to need some landscape pins, because when you run this tubing, and by the way, I recommend running this when it's a little bit warm outside, because this tubing can be kind of hard to work with. Number one, it's in a coil. So when you go to stretch it out, it's going to be kind of coiled up. So you need some landscape pins to kind of pin it down along the way that you're going to go. And then I will show you in a little bit how I bury mine also. And then you can, the end caps, the fittings can be very hard to get on. It takes a lot of twisting and putting on there. It does better in the heat. And you can also bring out, if you have like a thermos, fill it with some hot water. You can dip the end of your drip tubing in there for just a couple seconds and then put the fitting in. It's going to make it a lot easier. So that's just a little tip for you. You can also get these fittings that have on-off valves. And I think this one's filled with dirt. So, oh, there we go. So it has, what you do is you insert this into your main line and then you come off. So let's say you have like an area that you know, strawberries or grapes or, your raised beds, where later in the season, you know that you don't need as much water going to that area. You can insert these on-off switches into your main line, come off of it with your raised bed drip or whatever you need to turn off that area. You insert this and then you can have it open to flow whenever you need it. When July, August comes around and you're done with it, you can just switch it off. All of the rest of your drip will run and that bed will be turned off. It's great for like watermelons and cantaloupes when you need to turn those off, when you need those to fully ripen towards the end. Okay, so on-off switches are great to have. They're a little bit expensive, but they're worth it. You also just need a pair of good, sharp pruners. A nice big pair is great. It cuts right through the tubing. So that is pretty much it. There are some end caps for the drip tape that you would need. That's about it. Okay, let me walk you around and I'm going to show you how I have mine set up. Okay, before I show you how I have mine set up, let's talk about length of run, because that is the question of, when I was looking, I could not find any information on, okay, well, how much can one zone hold and do? And there is somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I was pregnant in the bed looking at this stuff. But there is some type of calculation you could do to see how many feet you can run with certain amount. Okay. My advice to you on this is to just get in there and run it. It can probably run a whole lot more than you think it can on one zone. Get in there, start hooking stuff up, run that drip, and when you start to get to a point where it's like, okay, well, we're not getting up to this area, everything else here is getting a lot of water and that up there is not getting enough water, you probably need to think about getting to a new zone. So I will kind of pan over here and show you my zones that I've got set up, and then we'll talk about it a little bit further so it helps you understand how much you can actually run. So one thing to note is it's kind of like your main line can run pretty far because you're not dropping any water out of it. Okay, you need to think about how far is that main line running. It can run pretty far, but how much water is being distributed off of that line? So your spots at the beginning of the faucet, those spots are going to have a lot more water because that water comes out of there first, and then it continues on that main line and then starts coming out those other lines that you have off there. So, all right. Okay, so we're back here at the faucet, and you can set up your zones to run, on your timer, different times of the day. Like I do this one. I run mine, last year I did for about 20 minutes every day. I find here, we are in zone 7B. We have some hot days in July and August, so I try to run mine every day. I just feel like it does a lot better here. Now, I change it, from spring, we don't have to water quite as often, but once you get to July and August, buddy, it's hot. So we run a lot of it. So you set your zones up here. You can set your timer for how long. I run mine, at least last year, I did it for about 20 minutes a day. That's in the, summer when it's real hot and things are really cranked up. So you stick your 1/2-inch blank distribution tubing. This is your main line here, and you can tighten this so it stays on. Now you can see I've got several lines coming off of here, and I'm just taking this to my different areas where I want to water. So my zone 1, let's see, my zone 1 actually goes that way, but let's talk about this zone. So this is my zone 3. I've come off here and I've buried it. It goes back behind here. It hits up this bed. So you can see there is one of those T connectors right here. So I cut it right here, inserted this end here because I wanted it to carry on. And then I also wanted to hit up this bed. So I did the T connector and I put it on there, took my main line over to the bed. So the main line is like, where do you want to go? Okay. I came off here, like I told you, I did drip tape last year, and I'll probably leave this for this year since it's already done, but my other raised beds I'm doing the 1/4-inch distribution tubing every 6 inches. You can see I've got the on-off valves here. So it connects into your main line and runs off the drip tape. Let me show you these connectors. And then another way that you can do it also. So these are the connectors. You just fold over the end of the drip tape and stick those end caps on. If you don't want to do that, you can actually cut a piece of your drip tape, fold the end over, and slide this end on. It works pretty good. Every now and then I'll have these slip off, but it does pretty good. Okay, so continuing on, we are back behind this bed, and we ran my main line here. I still have to bury it, but I will probably end up coming off of here and burying it to hit up this middle section here. So I'm going to take my main line, put another T connector in there, and run it up to here. And then when I get to this point, this is where I'm going to use, because this is a bigger area and I don't know exactly what I'm going to plant in this area yet, it'll be more things like trees and bushes rather than like here annuals and cut flowers. There will be some of those things. But what I'll do is I will run my main line to maybe, I might put it to here, and then I might take it just kind of up this edge, because at that point my main line runs here, and then I can come off of that, either put in one of those straight connector pieces, and then I will probably snake through here the 1/2 inch emitter tubing, the brown with the holes every 6 inches. If I get something in here that needs a lot more water, I can still come off of that, and I'll show you how I did that over here. And I can still come off of that, take it to a certain plant that needs a lot more water. Okay? All right. So, back over here to this main line. It is put, you can see it, it's underneath of the mulch here, and it runs all the way down here. So now you can see this main line runs right behind this flower bed, and so I can pull off of this at any point and get my water in here. I actually have, I think, that tree, yes, I have the 1/4 inch distribution tubing wrapped around the base of that tree. I stay under the drip line, which is the farthest point of the branches, and that is wrapped with the 1/4 inch, so that water gets directly to that tree. So I'll kind of show you over here. Okay, so here's a good example. This I had hooked up to a pot last year. This is the 1/4 inch tubing. Let me just pull off where this is from so that you can see. Okay, so here is the connection point. This is that 1/2 inch main line, and yes, I see you, Raleigh. This is the 1/2 inch main line. Then this is the 1/4 inch distribution tubing. So this is blank. This has no holes to it. There are connectors that you can buy. There's actually a really great kit. I put it on the website at rockfishfarm.com. A kit that comes with this tubing, the other tubing, these 1/4 inch connectors. It's a great starting point to have. Plus it has the hole punch with it. So what you do is you punch a hole with that tool, and then you stick in the emitter. There's like goof plugs, like if you need to fill a hole, you made a mistake, you need it to be somewhere else, there's a goof plug, there's these connectors. So I have a connector in here. It runs to, it would run to that pot over there, but I come to the end, you can splice it, put in another emitter to carry on, and now I've switched over to the 1/4 inch tubing, and this is what would wrap into my pot over there. I kind of changed its location, so I need to fix this, but now this is where the water runs from, is the emitter tubing, and you can see I've got a goof plug on the end there, so that's just like the end cap for that tubing. I'm trying to show you how I have this hooked up, but it's kind of like you just get in there and start working with it. You run your main line, and then you go, okay, here's a rose, this needs some water directly on it. There's a couple different things I'll show you that you can do. You know, okay, I want it to come to this pot, let's get the water over to the pot, and then you put the water into the pot. Once you get in here and start doing this stuff, it's not as confusing as you think it is. So, all right, let's keep going down this main line so I can show you all the different connections that you can do. Okay, so you've got, that's where we just were. This carries on, there's same thing. There's underneath of here, there is, I actually just pulled off of that since it was pretty close. I pulled off of that the 1/4 inch distribution tubing, so the brown tubing, and that wraps around this rose. Okay, it connects, or continues, underneath of the gravel, does the same thing to this rose, and then it carries up in this flower bed. This is the main line, and you can kind of see it popping out here. And okay, so you can see last year I cut and ended right here. This was, I had corn growing in here, so I had some drip tape. So this year I wanted to continue on, so I put in a connector piece and just continued on. So under here will be, I don't think it's there yet, I'm going to come off into the plum tree and wrap the base of that. So it's kind of like you're bringing it to each bed and each area that you need to do. There's also a connector somewhere under here connecting. It comes across underneath of here and plops up into this bed. So this is where I used the elbow pieces. I haven't buried it very well, but you can see my main line comes here. I used an elbow to kind of go up so it has a cleaner way into the bed, and then another elbow piece to shoot across the top. I came across the top. You can see I run the main line across my bed just across the top. Then I came off of it with the drip tape. Okay? All right, let's continue on because it hits up again this year. I'm going to come in here and snake some of the distribution tubing in there. We come over here. This is where I had some strawberries last year. Don't pay attention to this mess. We're a work in progress here. Same of those connectors that turn off. And then I had that pot sitting here. So you can see I came off of this and it looks like they buried it. So I'm going to have to dig that out. But this comes off. This is, okay, let me dig this out because I really want to show you what's on the end of this. All right, that isn't happening. So I'm going to have to get my husband to pull that out. I will show you another area where I've got what's on the end of this. So this one has the same thing. This is just the blank 1/4 inch distribution tubing. I'm plugging it into there, and then it kind of comes up, runs up into this pot. And in that kit I was telling you about, there are these little stakes, and you put them in your pot, and the tubing sits right in there, and it drips water into this pot, so I don't even have to water this pot. Okay, so it comes across the chicken coop. I did an elbow here to turn back over there. Okay, so as it comes across here, let's see if I can find the emitter here. This is what's on the end of that tube I was just showing you. Let's see where we're at here. Yes, okay. Here we are. So I have it running, and this is where those landscape pins really help to get this right next to the base of the plant, because here I say, okay, I don't need to come off of this. The plant is right here at it. I pop in with the hole punch tool, and then I pop in an emitter. So you can do all different types of gallon per hour emitters. You know, there's 1/2 gallon, there's 1/4 gallon, there's 1 gallon per hour, 2 gallon per hour. There's all different sizes. So you can kind of gauge what emitters. I get a pack of each of them because different things will need different sizes. Like on my grapes and blueberries and things like that, I put the big ones. My trees, if I'm having this come to like a tree, which I typically don't, I typically wrap the base of the tree. But like this plant, this is a honeysuckle. So I feel like this is a 1/2 gallon per hour emitter. Doesn't need a ton of water, but I want it to have some. So I stick it right there, and then you cover it up and it drips when the water comes on. So you can see how long I'm running this main line here. It's going pretty far. There's not a ton that it's, you know, watering at the moment, but I'm pretty sure it'll do what I need it to do, because I'm going to end up, you know, coming into it, snaking off of it with that 1/2 gallon and kind of wrapping these areas. Across the back, same thing, coming off of there with the blank distribution tubing over to here, and then it kind of snakes off of there. Same thing here, and then I'm continuing on. You can see the black distribution tubing, the 1/4 inch one there, kind of comes and wraps around there. And then I come up here. This is the area where I used the drip tape last year because I had a lot of like cut flowers, and so I just kind of planted them. So you see I did it in a row, and it doesn't really cover like the in-between area. But, you know, for my flowers that I had in a row, it was a good option. I will probably end up changing this. For this year, probably am going to leave it. So my tubing for this flower bed currently stops here, and I'm probably going to run it all the way down because I want to take water to the end of this bed, and then I'll be able to, you know, wrap it through here. Actually, I probably don't even need to do that, to be honest with you. I could probably eventually will just pop in here and then snake from this direction to get this entire bed. All right. The other part on this zone right here is this middle part. So I came off of the chicken coop somewhere over here. It runs under the gravel, and then I just have it running here along the edge, and then it kind of stops past that tree right over in that area. You can see I've got some drip tape running off of it. I did the same thing with some cut flowers. And then also each of these bushes, since there's not a ton planted over here. So this is kind of where you just need to think about each area. There's not a ton planted over here. And there probably won't be, because a lot of these bushes will get pretty tall and they will fill in. So I'm not going to have a need for, you know, anything like cut flowers, like a bunch of them. So I just came off of the distribution tubing or the main line, and then wrapped each plant. Okay, so that's saving me some water in this area because I'm just not going to need it. Okay, so that is on what is on one zone, and it worked really well last year. Now you can imagine that this is where it talks about, okay, well, all of that down there is going to get water first, right? So in your 20 minutes, that's going to get water, a lot of water, not necessarily a lot of water longer than by the time it comes up here, fills all of these drip tape lines and waters this. So you can think about it that way. Like I had a bunch of cut flowers over here and they're just not going to need as much water. So it kind of worked out. Now, when you think about, you know, how far it's going and how much it's watering, by the time I get done with this bed, it's going to be kind of like what I've got going over here with this area. It's not going to be a ton of row flowers like that. It's going to be more so of your trees, your bushes that I can come. I'm running this main line. That main line's going to fill pretty quickly, but then once you get to the point where it starts distributing, that's when you're like, okay, well, how much am I distributing on? So you can see over here, I've just got several little things here that I'll have to come off of that main line to kind of get water too. So it's like we're running a whole lot, but there's not a ton of water at this point being distributed on that line. So that's quite a bit on here, I would think. And I feel like I could do more. I could feel like I can snake through each of these beds in these some of these areas and have water just fine. You just kind of have to run it and watch it. Like before I bury it, I check it. Before you put fresh mulch on everything, I ran all these lines for 20 minutes, make sure that they were working good, water was getting everywhere it needs to go, and you just check it. And then you watch your plants and you say, okay, well, those little emitters that you popped in that I was showing you over here with the honeysuckle, you know, okay, well, maybe this tree, we want to put 2 gallon per hour ones to get more dripping for a shorter amount of time comparative to what's happening down here. So I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, lastly, let's talk about coverage. A couple different thoughts here. Let's talk about first landscaping and then coverage in your raised beds, and how when you go to run that tape or that tubing for 20 minutes, you know, how when it's snaked through, how far apart are you spacing that to get the coverage that you need? So first thing to think about, let's talk about landscaping. Landscaping, when you come in and you're creating new flower beds like this, or you're adding it, you are going to want to either have a plan first of what you're planting, or you're going to want to actually plant what you're planting, and then run your drip. The other thing to think about is that you're probably constantly going to be, as that flower bed is evolving, you're going to want to evolve that drip system. So when you look at some of these areas where I have just one thing every, 4 or 5 feet, then you don't have to snake through there if that's going to stay far apart like that. What you want to do is run your main line, run a drip emitter, or run some of that quarter-inch distribution tubing around that plant, and then you're not doing as much water. You're not watering places that really a plant is not going to grow, because what you're going to end up doing is just watering the weeds that are underneath of there, and then things are going to come up. So we don't want to water the weeds. So the other thing to think about is, okay, well, if I have an area like this, and then I'm just pulling off of that main line, but I want to add a section, I know I'm going to use this little spot right here for a bunch of annuals. Probably what I'm going to do right here. So in that instance, what you do is you have your main line that runs across the top here. I'm backwards, so I can't see what I'm doing. you run your main line, you come off of it for each little tree, but then the section, you're gonna run a main line, and then down in this area, I'm really backwards. You're down in this area, maybe you can snake through a bunch so it covers, okay? So you kind of have to evolve your drip system as your landscape evolves. Now the other thing to think about would be, is if you're running it into a raised bed with some, I'm taking you over to one of my raised beds, with some, that's gonna be jam-packed, okay? So let me turn the camera around and I'm gonna show you. Okay, so this is how I had it ran last year. So basically, when you do square foot gardening, I have a 4-foot by a 12-foot bed here. So I was thinking, and this is totally not enough. So I want you to know how I set it up and how I'm going to do it this year. So I ran my main line, and you know, basically you've got a square foot here, a square foot here, a square foot here, and a square foot here. And so I was thinking maybe it had enough coverage to get that whole square foot wet. However, that was not the case. When I'm planting, you know, 16 carrots per square foot, the stuff that's right near the drip did really well, but the stuff back here obviously did not get much water at all and did not grow very well. So what really needs to happen is there needs to be a lot more water in this bed accessible. So what I'm going to do, this would probably work out a lot better had I ran one line through each square foot. It probably would have been okay. All right, so this was kind of running in between the squares. This year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the line here, the main line, and then I'm going to take the brown 1/4-inch tubing that has emitters every 6 inches, and I'm going to snake it through. So that way each square has like at least 2, maybe even 3 runs of it, and so water is just everywhere. It's going to take a lot of tubing, but if you think about how much a square foot garden can grow, it's a ton. And so to put a lot of water in that one space is going to be very, very beneficial to you. One last thing, and then I'm going to have to pop inside real quick while it rains because it's starting to come down. Coverage as far as these single emitters that you know you have going to each of these trees. To be honest with you, I think I prefer, and this is something I'm playing around with, I prefer taking the emitter drip tubing that has the holes every 6 inches and wrapping, especially around a tree. That's going to be, I think, a lot more efficient than just dripping. So if you're thinking about the 1/4-inch, the 1/2 inch, or the 1 gallon or 2 gallon per hour, so you think about it. That tree, if you run, or that plant, if you run the your drip system for 1 hour, it's going to give it a gallon of water. So think about your milk jug gallon. Would you come out every single day and give that tree or that plant a gallon of water? Well, I'm only running it for 20 minutes, so 1/3 of the gallon, you know, depending on the size of it. Well, maybe. So think about how long you're planning on running it and how much water that tree would need each time you water whatever your plan is going to be. Now, you can do, you know, the smaller the plant, the less water it's going to need comparative to trees and big, huge 8-foot bushes. It might need the 2 gallon per hour, and then you run it for your 20 minutes. So you kind of have to play around and you have to watch what needs what. You're going to watch it from year to year and tweak it as you go. This tree, you know, if I put just a 1 gallon per hour, it probably doesn't need a ton of water. That might work out. I'm just going to watch it. If it shows signs of needing more water, then I'll tweak it. If it shows signs of having too much water, I'll come back in, I'll take one out and I'll plug the hole and it doesn't need that much, or I'll kind of fix how much tubing I have wrapped around it. So it's just a trial and error as far as the garden as a whole goes, and from year to year and what you have planted there. I think I've covered just about everything. I will show you real quick what I'm doing. I'll show you my raised beds and how I'm going to those, and I'll show you each zone real quick of what I'm going to be putting on each zone. But that is pretty much the basics. I mean, it's a lot, but it's once you get in there and get your hands in it and doing everything, you will see it's kind of like trial and error. Hook it up, see what runs, right? So you get in there, you get your hands dirty, and it's not as hard as you think it is. It'll run a whole lot more than you think, and it's pretty self-explanatory once you get going with it. So let me show you these different areas that I've got set up, and then I'll take you to the vegetable garden real quick and some of these areas and tell you what I've got going on. Okay, so I walked you through the first zone, and if anything, once I get in here and running this, I may end up putting this on a different zone, just because I don't have as much going on over here. So I may end up putting that on the same zone as the grapevines. So my second zone will be the grapes. So each row of grapes and blackberries and blueberries and all that. So has a line down to it. So then my main line continues on. It's going to get this bed right here, which are going to be strawberries in each of these round beds. And then there's blueberries, I think 9 of them. So this is the bed where it's running kind of far, but not a whole lot is dripping off of it, you know, so it's only hitting up these certain plants here, and it's only hitting up these beds, certain plants along here. So it runs a lot further. So I think I'm actually I did have that set up. I already had this planned. So it's going to come off to go this way into this little section here. All right, then it's going to come down. So this is still mainline tubing, and I've got emitters. So these take quite a bit of water. I think this is the 2 gallon per hour emitter here. I believe it might be the 1 gallon. I may end up coming in and putting a second one in here so that it can get a little bit more water than it had last year. I'm coming along, and I've capped it for right now here, but I'm going to extend that a little further, and then I'll have it snake through this bed back here. This is the girls' secret garden entrance. They're not quite done with the gravel here yet, but I'm going to be planting this up with some bushes and trees here, so it kind of grows up, and it's like this area back here becomes a secret little area. Of course, the fence line will come across there. And then also I have ran here, I believe it's going to go on this one because there's not a lot dripping off of this area that I showed you. It's running far, not dripping a whole lot. So I have it ran to come underneath of this walkway. This area over here is going to be my in-ground pumpkin area. And I have that set up with a grid and a little emitter at each spot where I plant the pumpkins. So again, that still won't be a lot dripping. It'll just be kind of farther running. All right, so then up here, there's going to be another path that exits the garden there. There's going to be a arbor here that you walk through. And then the third drip zone, this will drop a lot, but won't run as far. Does that make sense? So you kind of just have to play around with it, right? So it comes off of the spigot, it comes up this path here, and then it's going to run through this mulch bed. The mulch bed circles the entire vegetable garden area. There'll be a fence right here. Circles the entire vegetable garden area. I will probably snake off that as I need to. And then each garden bed has a main line that is ran to it. So I came off of this main line here, put in for this bed, I put, for each of these beds, I put in a T. So it continues on the main line, but then it branches off to go under the gravel. Into each bed, I took it up under the lip of each bed, pulls it up through the center, and then this is the point where you end cap it. I was going to show you, yes, here's the end caps. See how you just kind of fold it over and then stick it back down in, and that clamps the water. This is the end of the run here, and then it'll be the same thing on the end of the runs for each bed. Probably will cut this one a little bit shorter. So it kind of comes up, and then I'll punch a hole into here and run that 1/4 inch drip distribution tubing, and I will just snake it through here so it gets every square foot, because this will be planted up so tightly. It'll take a lot of that drip tubing, so you can kind of see what each bed is going to look like. To bury this, eventually all of this will be buried. I don't bury it very deeply, but I wanted it to sit, you know, kind of in the ground so there's not like a hump here with the gravel or the mulch. So I just take this, you can take the edge of a shovel, you can take you know, anything that's flat and sharp like this. And I just kind of dug like a little trench, and then I just kind of shoved it down in there. See, it's not even down very far, but this makes it sit down in that little trench a little bit better, and then you can cover it up. So you can see I got my landscape pins every now and then, so it holds it down. So each bed, I'm going to snake around there, and to be able to get these beds, I'll come off of it that way. I hope you enjoyed touring around the garden today and how I have drip set up. I hope it's helpful to you, because I had a very hard time figuring it out and finding something that explained it in depth. I promise you, it's pretty simple once you get going. But I think the most helpful thing is to go to rockfishfarm.com and go under that garden tab, or go under the shop tab and then under garden. And I've listed everything that I've used and talked about here today in this video. And I think that's going to be the most helpful thing, so you know exactly what to go grab, because I think that was the most difficult part. And then just know you're going to be expanding, clipping, cutting, and getting to different areas and just kind of playing around with it. And I think that's just the name of the game, and you'll learn each year, okay, this needs more water or this needs less water. I will get that other video, I promise you it'll be a lot shorter than this one, of how I hooked up drip up at the house to hanging baskets and pots and things, and especially up on my upper deck up there, and how I have that run. It's not much different than this, but it is a slightly different setup there. So hope this was helpful to you, and I will talk to you soon.